friends! Welcome back to the vlog. If you're new here, I'm Angela D. I'm a single millennial foster mom in Los Angeles, vlogging about my life with two little guys. My oldest foster son, Buster, who is officially 22 months old. My second foster son, Dash, who is about to be 11 months old. Those are not their real names. Those are nicknames just to protect their privacy. I don't share about their families. I don't share about their cases or any personal information, just our time together. So now that that's out of the way, if you haven't already, go ahead and click subscribe if you're a returner and you know you love this channel, just so we know you're watching and you want to see more. If you're new and you like this video or any other videos that you see, please click subscribe and join our community. So yes, today is a huge topic. I want to be very careful when I am presenting this material because it is very different. The process of adoption through foster care is very different wherever you live. So I can only give you insight into California, and even then, I've never adopted a child through California. I have two foster sons officially right now, and they are my first and second placement. So I'm just going to give you what I know, what I've been told, my experience. I'm not going to talk about either of my boys' cases. I'm going to just talk about in general. And if you have questions, please leave them below. This is just a quick overview. I can go in depth on specific parts of this video if people want to see that. But yeah, so here we go. Can you adopt from foster care? Yes, you can. But when you go into this process of being a foster parent, you must know that the goal is always reunification with either the bio family or the bio parents when it is safe. Unless the child that you are interested in adopting has already had their parental rights terminated. So I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself, but I just wanted to make that clear in the beginning that foster care is about reunification first, and if reunification is not possible, adoption second. So I think I should explain what TPR or termination of parental rights are. So when a kid comes into foster care, their parents still have rights to them. They are still their children in the eyes of the law until a judge determines that that is no longer so. In most cases in my county, and I think many other counties, a child will be in care for quite some time before rights are terminated. In my county, it's 18 to 24 months max, supposedly, although kids, because of court scheduling and availability, sometimes stay in care much longer, or sometimes kids will come into care and then go back to their bio parents and then come back into care and go back to their bio parents. So anyway, TPR is when their parents officially no longer have rights to them and they are considered wards of the state and they are legally free for adoption. They can be adopted by a family member if a family member has expressed interest and has been approved to adopt them. And usually in my state, they are their foster parents first. Foster parents is called kinship, which means your kin is your foster parent. Or the person who is fostering them can adopt them. Or if a family only wants to foster and has no interest in adoption, then another family that is waiting to adopt could be the adoptive parent for the kid. So let's just rewind. Go back to the main point that foster care is about reunification. If you are someone who is like, hey, I actually just want to adopt an older child, I have no interest in adopting a baby or a young child. There are many children in the United States, I know for sure in my state and lots of other states, that already have their parental rights terminated and are waiting on a permanent home. And this is because a lot of people don't even consider adopting older children. For me, when I started my foster care journey, I knew I wanted to foster first, and before I considered adoption. And I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, and in my county, you can only have kids 2 and under share a bedroom with you. So it was pretty much instant that I would only get little tiny people. So that's why I haven't adopted an older child, one of the reasons. And so if you know that you're interested in adopting an older child, you would talk to your county, or you would talk to Adopt Us Kids, I know, is a really good website that has children who are waiting to be adopted. There's heart galleries, like Los Angeles, where I live, has a heart gallery of children, usually sibling sets. That's why it's harder to get them adopted, because they need to be adopted together so that they can stay together. And medically fragile children, a lot of times aren't considered for adoption by their foster family, just because that family their goal in life may be to foster as many medically fragile children as possible to give them a chance. So anyway, Heart Gallery, Adopt Us Kids, check out your state, Google it, type in your area and find out. There are a ton of older kids who have had TPR, have their parents' rights terminated, who are waiting for adoption. So check that out if you are interested in that. If you're interested in an older kid, you still have to technically foster, at least in my state, for 6 months, even though you are their adoptive family, and there's an entire process for that. You don't just pick a kid off of a website and they come to you and then that's the end. If you see a kid on Heart Gallery or on Adopt Us Kids, you contact the person that they tell you to contact on those websites. You have to go through a screening process. You have to go through a matching process, because it could be that the children's needs are not something you can support, so they won't match you with those children. If they're older, if they're teens, they usually get to interview you and get to know you. It's not automatic that they immediately come to your house and live with you. But there is a process to adopt much more quickly if you are interested in an older child who has already had their rights terminated, and in my city's case, if you are open to siblings. So that's one way to adopt from foster care. Another way to adopt from foster care is to be a foster parent first. Well, actually, so that's one way to adopt from foster care. Another way to adopt from foster care, if you know you want a baby, is to get on your county's safe surrender list, or I think in Los Angeles it's called the MCU, and I should know what that means, but it's a list where babies who are 99.9% going to be put up for adoption go to people on this list. It's people who have no interest in fostering. Maybe their heart can't take it. They don't feel like they can put in the emotional work of supporting a family through reunification, but they are interested in adopting from foster care. There is a list you can go on. Now, because so many people want to adopt babies and for whatever reason forego private adoption, and that for whatever reason is usually because it's tens of thousands of dollars for private adoptions, which I don't understand and I'm not getting into. It's not for my family. It's for a lot of other people's families. I respect that. I do not have the knowledge, and I won't learn the knowledge because I don't have tens of thousands of dollars for an adoption. But many people who can't afford private adoption go through being on this list. And because so many people want to do it, this list in my area is over 2 years long. So you will be waiting to be called for a potential baby who has been safely surrendered or who looks like they're going straight to TPR. It could be up to 2 years or more. I used a term there that many people might not know yet. It's safe surrender, and it's important for this list because a safe surrender baby is a baby whose parent goes to the hospital and doesn't tell the hospital their name or any of their information, just knows they want to give the baby up for adoption. So they will safely surrender the baby to the hospital, as opposed to something, more tragic, which does happen. So that's why it's called a safe surrender. They do not get in trouble for safely surrendering their baby with no information. As long as they don't have your name or any of your kin's name, it's literally just a handoff and they leave, and then the baby goes into the system and is usually put with somebody off of this matching list. You can safe surrender at fire stations. You can safe surrender at police stations. I don't know of any other places in my county that you can safe surrender, but I know for sure fire station, police station, hospital. If somebody is trying to safe surrender and they give their name, unfortunately, that's no longer a safe surrender, because then they'll look up your family members and try to match your family members with your baby, because the goal is to have kids return again to family, biological family, or to, in my state, it's called non-related extended family members, or some places call it fictive kin. So people who are close to you, like friends of your family or the parent. So yes. This list that's over 2 years long in my area is for people who do not have any interest in fostering, pretty much just want a baby, safely surrendered, or that looks like they're going to TPR. There is, I will say, a chance, a very small chance, but still a chance, that with a safe surrender baby, a parent can come forward all the way up into the point where it's TPR and express interest in working to get their baby back. And they match them up. If a mother were to come forward after safely surrendering, they'd be like, what day did you safely surrender? What day did you deliver? We're going to do a blood test with this baby who was safely surrendered at that place at that time. And chances are they may give the parent time to try and get their child back, because they've changed their mind about safely surrendering, and that's what foster care is about. Or sometimes when people are pulled off of this list for a baby that looks like it's going to TPR right away, which is called fast track. I'll get into that in a minute. It's never fast. Sometimes if a baby is placed with somebody off this list and they're fast track, meaning they know the parents' names, the biological parents' names, but the biological parents said they had no interest, sometimes a family member will pop up and they will give the baby to a family member who is safe and qualified to take the baby. So there is risk inherent to being on this list. And I read a blog years ago, somebody in my county, that happened to them. They had signed up for the MCU list They got a baby that they thought was going to go straight to TPR, fast tracked, and a family member came forward and got the baby, and they were crushed and they quit. And I don't know if they decided to do, I think it was twins actually. I don't know if they decided to do private adoption or what, but I know that the baby didn't stay. The baby or babies didn't stay with them. So there is the risk to being on this list if you try to bypass foster care and just adopt. But lots of people do that and have been successfully matched and have adopted from foster care. Now, before I move on, so the first one is to adopt an older child, and that's usually a lot faster of a process, but it's not quick by any means because they have to make sure it's the right fit, because it's better for the kids and the adoptive parents if they do that. And then there's being an adopt-only family and being on the adopt-only list, which in my county is called the MCU, I think, and takes over 2 years to get off of. And that's for safe surrender babies or fast track babies. So I've explained safe surrender. Now it's time to explain fast track. So if you are given a baby from this list that is fast track, it means that the parent already has had children taken out of their custody and adopted, or is about to be adopted, or they've lost parental rights, and that parent has not changed their lifestyle in a way that would say that they can still take care of this next baby. So let's say a parent has had 2 children removed from their custody, TPR has happened, she gets pregnant, things are better for a little while, but she falls back into whatever habit it was that got her first 2 removed. The hospital tracks that, the county tracks when you have children taken, and they can run your name through the system when you're in the hospital giving birth, and they will see that you have a history, and they will see, oh, you know, she's not better, she hasn't changed, she's still doing XYZ, and they will take the baby from the hospital. And sometimes they will call a fast track adoption, meaning they will give the baby, put the baby in the system, and either kinship or fictive kin or a foster parent will be able to adopt the baby on a faster timeline than if a parent is given a plan to work to get their children back. So it's very uncommon that a baby is fast tracked, very uncommon. But if you're like on the 6th or 7th child that has been taken by DCFS, and maybe the parent has an addiction that they haven't worked through or some other circumstance that makes them ineligible to take care of the child, they will take the baby and fast track that adoption. So you also have to realize when you're on this MCU list, if you have a baby like that, that's fast tracked and they do have siblings in the system, the people that get called first for those babies are family, biological family, fictive kin, or non-related extended family members. So like, a neighbor or a baseball coach that had a big impact on the parents' lives. You know, non-related extended family members can be like anyone. And the parents who are adopting the siblings that were taken before. So you could get a baby who's expected to be fast-tracked from that list, the MCU, and then the adoptive parents of the other children could say, yes, I want to adopt that baby too. And then they will automatically get that baby. It's so super complicated. So, and then fast track really isn't fast track because you have to depend on like the social workers to do things in a timely manner, the adoption workers to do things in a timely manner, the courts to be able to handle the caseloads that they're handling. So it gets pushed off and pushed off and pushed off. And like a fast track baby could take like a year to 2 years to be adopted. So it's a long, long, long process. So those are the 2 ways that are faster than typical foster to adopt. So now I will get into the nitty gritty. This is what everybody came for. Fostering to adopt. A lot of people do not like that term because, again, fostering is about reunification. So I watched a vlog. I think it was called The F Word, but it's fostering. It's about 2 women, a married couple in San Francisco who were on the road to adoption, and kind of how they went through the process. They wanted to be adoption only for a little while, and then they switched over when they weren't getting any calls to fostering with the openness to adopt. And they talked to an adoptee from foster care, and she said she did not like the term foster to adopt because it assumes that you will be adopting. So she liked foster and adopt, which I like too. I say I'm foster and adopt, or foster open to adoption, meaning if one of my foster babies ever was available for adoption, then I would adopt them. But foster first. So that's what I like to say, foster and adopt, or foster open to adopt. So this is what people typically go through. You get a foster child, you work to reunify with the parents when the court says, hey, I'm sorry, you can no longer reunify, that's when you go on the road to adoption. Unfortunately, a lot of people come into this process thinking that they would be okay doing that or being a foster parent and then waiting to see if they'll be adopted, but supporting the family, and they end up just having their adoption hat on. That's what my social worker calls it, or the trainer for my agency called it. She said, when you're a foster parent, you have to have your foster hat on. That means you support the family, you do the visits, you fill out the paperwork, you love them with all your heart and soul, but you know that they are not up for adoption, so you do not think about adoption. When a judge does TPR, then you put on your adoption hat and you talk to the adoption worker and you think about long-term, forever and ever, amen. But until that point, you have to keep your foster hat on. A lot of people don't keep their foster hat on. A lot of people get a baby or get a child or get a sibling set and immediately fall head over heels in love, which you're supposed to do. But they take off that foster hat and they put on the adopt hat, and then they get devastated when the parents get themselves together and get their children back, or devastated when a family member comes forward and takes the children to, be with them, or, they just get so upset to the point where they hate fostering, they hate the system, they hate everything. And to be fair, there are many cases where children are reunified to unsafe situations. And in those cases, yeah, absolutely, the system doesn't work well all the time. But a lot of times it's parents who have put that adoptive hat on and who, didn't keep their sights like, oh, hey, there are people who are trying to get their children back, or, oh, hey, there are family members that are trying to get their family back. Like, biological family, because foster children are your family, but biological family back. Let's pump the brakes and not think about and plan for forever. And that is easy to say, but super hard to do. I had that with the boys too. I had to keep telling myself, they're my babies in my heart. They are not my baby legally. They are somebody else's baby legally and in actual fact. So let's go ahead and support the families as much as possible to try to get it together, to get their kids back. Advocate for them as much as possible. I told myself if it ever came to a point where I would adopt one of my foster children, I want to be able to say, I supported your biological family. I supported your biological parents as much as I could. I advocated for them within the system, with your lawyers, with your social workers. I tried everything I could. It just didn't work out. In the end, they were not able to do what they needed to do to safely have them live with you. So that's my philosophy. Keep your foster hat on until the adoptive hat comes out, and then you can change your thoughts, but also you have to keep space in your heart for the fact that they will always have that bio family, and they should have access to them as long as it's safe to do so. So anyway, the long course of this is the foster adoptive process goes through, I think I detailed a video about how it works up until TPR before this. I'll take a look in my archive. If not, that's a whole other video. But once you get to the point of TPR, or once you get to the point where the judge says, okay, we're not providing services anymore for the parents to get their kids back, then you get called by somebody that's an adoption worker. And they're a social worker that specializes in adoption. And they come out to your house just like a social worker will, and they look at where you live, and they look at all of your, all of the space, and they meet the kids, or the babies, or in my case, babies, but kids in general. They ask you a ton of questions, kind of about your upbringing and about your plans for the future, and if you're willing to adopt, and they ask a lot of questions. So I wish I could give you more specifics, but they come out and they talk to you and they make sure you're safe. And then they are the ones that track all of the paperwork from that point on. As soon as TPR happens, the adoption worker gets all that together, fills out a bunch of paperwork, works with your regular social worker. They in turn put everything together. In my county, what they do is I forget what it's called. I think it's called, anyway, they get the piece of paper that says, hey, TPR happened. We're going to send this to Sacramento, because I'm in California and that's the capital. We're going to send this to Sacramento, and Sacramento is going to get this paper, and they're going to look at this paper and be like, oh yes, it says here that this child has had TPR. That means that whoever is the prospective adoptive parent, PAP, that's the person, it's usually the foster parent or the fictive kin or whoever is going to be adopting the child after TPR. They get permission from Sacramento that says, oh, you can start the paperwork. And that's called acknowledgement. I remember that. So the acknowledgement it takes a while, because apparently the acknowledgement office, or the people that do acknowledgement in Sacramento, it's a very small office. So they have to have this piece of paper that says, oh, the capital confirms that TPR happened. Let's move forward with that adoption. So they have to send it back to your adoption worker. And then the adoption worker contacts you and is like, hey, we got to fill out some paperwork. And you can either hire a private attorney or you can have a pro bono attorney. This is the part that makes adoption for foster care very appealing, because it is free or very inexpensive. If you go with a pro bono attorney, it is free. In my county, the pro bono attorney wait is like 1.5 to 2 years, because there's a backlog of people that need to be adopted, especially because of COVID. If you get a private attorney, it'll range between like $500 and $650, of which my county will reimburse $400. So you get either out of pocket, all said and done, you pay between $100 and $250. I think my math is right. Between $100 and $250 out of pocket after the county reimburses you. So that's why people want to adopt from foster care, because it is free or very inexpensive. So anyway, if you hire a private attorney, it goes much, much faster. They can turn in the paperwork to the private attorney. The private attorney immediately files, goes through, make sure you have like everything notarized and all the paper filled out, paperwork that you and your adoption worker filled out together, and they send it to the court like boom. And depending on how fast your adoption private attorney works, it could be anywhere between weeks to like 2 months. So it's very quick once it gets to the point of the adoption attorney. And then in my county, because of COVID, I don't think they're doing courtroom hearings. I do think they're doing Zoom, where you go in front of the judge and the judge like declares you a family with a gavel, like pomp and circumstance. But that takes a while because you have to get on the docket, and the docket is backlogged. So they're giving parents the option, prospective adopted parents, the option to just file the paperwork and get a letter in the mail that's like, your kid's adopted, hooray! So, I mean, anticlimactic, but there are people who feel adoption shouldn't be celebrated because there is a permanent severance between your biological family to your adoption family. There are people who do feel like adoption should be celebrated, especially for older kids who need that kind of closure and like the symbolism of moving on to being part of your adoptive family while also like holding your bio family in your heart. And then there are people who leave it up to the kids to decide. For me, I don't know what I would pick. It depends on the kids. I don't need to go in front of a court or a judge. I mean, the symbolism is amazing, but I would rather, if I had the option, I think I just want to get it done. So basically, adoption for foster care is actually like a really long time. It could take years. It usually takes at least a year, even for fast track babies. It could take way longer than a year. It shouldn't. They should decide permanency faster, but it's not always possible for one reason or another. And, you know, because of bureaucracy. And it's not, and again, for the millionth time, it is not the goal. It is not the main goal of foster care to have children adopted. The main goal of foster care is to keep biological families together. Unfortunately, that can't happen for many, many, many reasons. Some good, some sad, and some bad. But yeah, that is pretty much my summary. If there's something that I mentioned in this video that you want me to go more in depth in, please leave it in the comments. I'm happy to do so. And yeah, I just wanted to give you kind of an idea of what adoption from foster care is like, the different kinds of adoptions from foster care there are. And again, I have 2 foster sons. Notice I did not say 2 adoptive sons. So I have not been through the whole process before. So I could have gotten some things wrong, but I don't think I did. But anyway, subscribe if you haven't already. Join us on Facebook and Instagram at angeladeevlogs, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye!